Okay, so now we'd like to take a look at the physical side of the economic crisis and address what I like to think of as the three prongs of the devil's pitchfork, which are now threatening to kill, literally through starvation and dehydration, billions of people on this planet. Those three prongs being, one, the disinvestment that's been going on for the greater part of the last 50 years in things like physical infrastructure, which we've seen, the American Society of Civil Engineers have repeatedly in their report cards given U.S. infrastructure a D-, with water infrastructure often getting the lowest grade possible. The second of these prongs being speculation, the role of speculation in food. There was a report that now on the Chicago Wheat Board, 61% of all trades are done purely for the intention of speculation on food prices. Whereas even back in '96, before the reversal of Glass-Steagall, it was only 12%. Now we're up to 61%, led by, of all entities, Goldman Sachs. In that context, the World Bank in 2010 had said that 44 million people have been driven into poverty solely because of the speculative increases in food. Now, the third of those prongs, which they all kind of work in a dynamic together, is the green ideology. As we know, greenism, in the name of environmentalism, has been responsible for stopping the development of numerous dams and other water projects. In addition, you have things like the mandate around ethanol, where now over 40% of the corn produced in the United States is mandated under Obama's diktat to go towards ethanol production. And this 5 billion bushels of corn, which is going towards ethanol, has been estimated could feed up to 412 million people. So you've got a serious crisis, and it should be known Arthur Daniels Midland is actually the largest producer of corn for ethanol production. So it gives you a sense of the kind of entities behind this. Now, we currently find ourselves in a position where 48% of the contiguous United States is now in drought. 65% of Mexico is in drought. This includes 11 of the 17 western states of the United States. Now, of those, California is in a situation where for January and February of this year, they have the driest months on record. Since they've been keeping records in California, January and February have been the driest on record. So obviously we're facing a severe crisis with water, with food. The problem is that the solutions, to the extent any are being put forward, tend to be of the type of trying to accommodate to the crisis. Is there a way we can figure out to do dry farming, etc.? The idea that has traditionally driven man, the idea of the noosphere having dominion over the biosphere, the idea that we engage in what we've talked about as biospheric engineering, that's been lost because of just a general collapse in scientific thinking and just overall corruption. So I was wondering if you could address both, one, what is the intention that's behind that which has led us to this point of crisis, but probably most importantly, give us a sense of a way forward. What should be the policy moving forward?
Okay. Well, there are two sides to this thing. One is we should reduce the percentile of the population, that is of the level of population, which is involved in Wall Street and similar operations. We should demand that they be canceled. Their employment is unnecessary. They are useless people, while we have useful people are not allowed to work or shut off from work. If we want to rebuild this nation and save it, we're going to have to shut down most of what's called Wall Street and most of the practices which coincide with Wall Street. They're on the streets, buddy. Now, I have a very humane way of doing that. The humane way is to simply take the obvious action. We simply will bankrupt that system, which is unnecessary, and we will take the resources, including all the resources that Wall Street wastes on its own privileges, and we will have to redirect forces into reconstructing a real economy. which means food, which means general development, means health care, it means education, so forth and so on. If we start on a program, we say, well, all right, we put a tax on Wall Street. A tax that will extinguish most of them and to force them to try to find something useful to do instead of what they do now. But that's the spirit. If we are determined to save, in particular, this nation, which is not being saved now, this nation is being destroyed by the people who govern it. There have to be some changes. Some people have to come to the, prayer table or something, confess their sins and change their ways. Now, we have been reducing the number of people producing food. We have destroyed the basis for producing of food, especially in the characteristic areas. We have failed to develop the water management systems which are necessary for such a program, and so forth and so on. Those of us who have some expertise, know this. We know exactly what to do. The problem is the situation has gone so far down now that even the best effort we have with the resources we have is really not in full conscience, is not what we owe to our own people. We're not producing the food. We're not giving them the kind of employment that will enable them to be productive. We're destroying our own people. And we're destroying it because we're kissing the butt of the British Queen. That's what the problem is. If we go about our business in our American tradition, we have probably enough to save a lot of lives. Just cancel Wall Street. If we don't have to pay off Wall Street, think of all the wealth we can divert into useful things. We don't need Wall Street. We don't need speculation. We can have an open market, which is a fair bargaining market. We don't need this crap. We don't need the expenditures that are on people's lives whose lives are not productive. They have pleasure, they have all this, but they don't produce anything except trouble. So the simply is a change in the understanding. We're not going to show respect for a fat lout in Wall Street to order to starve children in some other part of the United States. We're going back. We're going to go back and we're going to get rid of a lot of the green. Now there's some green that's good, but most of the green that's intended is malicious. It comes from the British. And it won't help anybody. So we should go back to a U.S. standard, a U.S. tradition of the great food-producing nation, the great water builder of water systems needed for that. All we need is a good government, and we have not got one now.
Well, that brings a conclusion to tonight's webcast. I want to thank you very much, Mr. LaRouche. Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Dennis. And to everyone watching, you can contact us, larouchepack.com/contact, and you can take this webcast as soon as it's archived and reposted on the website, repost it on your website, get it out to all of your networks, put it up everywhere, and we hope you will join us next week in our continuing series of live webcasts. Thank you very much.